introduce you, Christoph. For the few folks that don't know you, if you can share in the meantime the screen, tell us a little bit more about you.
Briefly introduce myself. If you don't know me, I'm Christophe Parisel. I'm a cloud security architect, but also a security architect globally. I'm looking into many innovation topics, and of course, LLMs belong to this. And I'm particularly interested into how LLM can be integrated into big corporations or small corporations. But I think that the question of integrating LLM, of course, poses a lot of security questions. And I've worked a lot on that topic, and we're going to talk about that today. I've been working for more than 10 years in the public cloud, especially in Azure. So, of course, Azure OpenAI, but also all the Azure services. I worked with Microsoft in the early stages of building the security services that they now propose under Catalog. So since we have only 20 minutes or maybe a little more, I would just jump into the topic. So today, corporate LLMs, you know all, needless to say that LLM is a big disruption for everybody, and especially for the security community, because security doesn't like novelty, it doesn't like disruption. We are used to be very agile when it comes to incidents, resolution, incident anticipation. We have our response team, so we can be very swift and agile. But when it comes to a new concept, a new technology, we are much less agile to change our mindset in terms of security framework, security analysis, and risk identification. We had that problem a few years ago with the cloud, and I'm not sure that even today everybody is aware that we have to define a security posture in the cloud, and we had better find the right security posture for the right corporation. If you, for example, adopt a detect security posture, and then you realize 2 years after that you need to prevent security posture, it's going to cost you a lot. So the posture in the cloud took a long time to emerge, to cook, because security, of course, was not prepared for this innovation. But there is a difference here with LLMs. Things go much more rapidly than in the cloud. We have this new concept of LLM, but we have to move much swifter than with the cloud transformation, and still we have the same problem of mindset. Of how are we going to cope with such a novelty in terms of? So yes, so LLMs are really a disruption, as I said, and we have there has been a lot of reactions of the community, and lots of proposals have been made, and we might be a bit lost with the many directions that the proposal have gone. And I think that for corporate LLMs, there is we need to take a little perspective and try to not over-engineer things. We need to identify the battle we need to fight, and we need to fight only the right battle. We need to save our energy for what is worth battling against, right? So risk identification is much simpler than in the cloud, actually. We just have one thing to address when we talk about corporate LLM, and it is prompt injection. The rest, we should be very careful not to get swamped in a lot of new mitigations requirements. We need to focus on prompt injection, and we'll see that it's just one thing, but there are a few patterns that need to be applied to cope with it. But for example, you see, we've talked a lot about, for example, protecting the AI model. The AI model must be protected. It's very important. It's critical, etc. Okay. If you're in a big corporation, you have something that is called a golden source, or maybe several golden sources. You've had that for years, and they are distributed with a distribution layer to many downstream applications. So what is a golden source if not a model? So we have learned to secure models for ages. So securing an AI model is not much different than securing a model. Okay, this is just run of the mill. and it is not prompt injection. We will see in a few minutes that there is a marginal case of which is linked with prompt injection, but I think that the path that we need to follow is start from prompt injection and then derive the risk scenarios, which are really specific and novel. All the rest should be run of the mill. I insist because we don't have many workforces, we don't have unlimited resources in corporate security like everywhere else. So if we want to be successful, we need to focus with the little resources we have, and we need to mitigate the risks that are really novel. Okay, so prompt injection. I think that we have two subcases globally. We have LLMs which are fine-tuned, and LLMs which are using, let's say, RAG. I don't know how to say, but when you use vector databases, you know. So let's look into those two subcases one after the other. For fine-tuning, what is specific is that you train your model with corporate data. So we assume that this corporate data is a little bit sensitive, and you have to prevent this data from being leaked, not necessarily from being modified, because as we said, the model must be protected by the usual means. Okay, it must be integrity robust, let's say. Okay, the doors must be locked. So the model is supposed to be not corrupted. So the risk that we have is exfiltration. In this case, it is important to know the business case. If you are using a fine-tuned LLM for conversations, then you need to make sure that the LLM is grounded to only the information is being trained. It must not be allowed to contact internet, for example, and the information that can be leaked actually must we must make sure that this LLM is dedicated to its need, right? So you must have one LLM, fine-tuned LLM instance per business need, because when you engage in a conversation with an LLM, you must assume that because of the way we talk with natural language, the adversary will be able to siphon or to get what he wants from the LLM, because the LLM wants to help you. It's always a very helpful servant. There's no way, there's no railguard that will prevent someone who is really smart from exfiltrating the data. There's no filter like we have in a firewall, an application firewall. We cannot filter on keywords. It doesn't work. So if someone is trying to sell you an LLM firewall, I hope that you will laugh at him, okay? So we can't today filter human language efficiently. So the only mitigation that we have is dedicate the fine-tuned model to the business case and ensure that the people who have a conversation with the fine-tuned LLMs are the one who have the need to know. In other words, the people who engage in a conversation with a fine-tuned LLM already know the information that is in the LLM. Okay, so they won't discover anything new because they are expert in the sensitive model that has been fine-tuned. It's just a helper. Okay, it's an assistant, a productivity accelerator. So fine-tuning for conversation is simple. It's maybe expensive because you will have to have maybe several fine-tuned LLMs into your corporate system, but at least you have this kind of horizontal segregation per business line and per need to know. Very important. So you're not gonna expose a fine-tuned LLM to anybody in the world. I hope very much. At the moment, it's gonna be very dangerous because the guys on the internet who needs to have a conversation with your LLM are going to leak your data. Okay, very important. Now, if your fine-tuned LLM is connected to the information system, if it's integrated into the information system, it's something different, and we will get back to it in a few minutes. Because I want first to talk about RAG, the second use case, which is very important to protect. So for RAG, remember that RAG it means that when somebody asks something to the LLM, actually the plugin, which is interfaces to the LLM, will sort of get the information or pre-process the request, and so that the information is grabbed from some documents of yours that are going to be analyzed by the LLM, right? To put it very simply. The first thing to do, of course, is to ensure that the documents which are accessible have been curated, have been reviewed. It's not just any document, arbitrary document on the internet, or even any arbitrary document into your information system. The documents must be devoid of any malicious prompt that has been ingrained directly or indirectly through an email, through maybe a document that was put on a share file, or I don't know. But the documents that are put in a vector database must be prompt injection free, okay? Otherwise, the LLM will interpret the prompt and will do whatever the prompt asks, so it's gonna be dangerous. First thing, it's whitelist the document, make sure that the document are not just any document in your information system. The second point is to make sure that the users which connect to your RAG have rights, IAM roles, let's say, which are restricted by the plugin. The plugin, meaning the agent between the user and the LLM, because your LLM can be pretty much universal. Okay, it can cover many business cases, unlike the fine-tuning case. You can have one big LLM and which serves a lot of different corpora, different set of documents. But for each set of document, they must be segregated, right? So if a user works in the sales department, he will have access to the corpora of the sales department. If he works at the R&D, he will have access to maybe sensitive intellectual property things that are technical and very business valuable. And so the set of documents will be another completely segregated. So you need to apply this kind of segregation, and it's pretty easy to implement in a plugin today. The plugin must ensure that the sales connects to sales document and the engineer connects to engineer document. There is no crossing, possible crossing. That's very important. So that's the main difference between fine-tune and RAG. Fine-tune is not universal. You need to deduplicate or to replicate instances. For RAG, you can have just one single big instance, which is shared among many business lines, and the plugin will take care of the segregation, the horizontal segregation. It's a software segregation, so it's less costly. And it's easier to implement in terms of security. It's relatively common. Now we get to the important point. So far we've just discussed about conversations, human conversations, right, within an LLM. Now, if we want to integrate the LLM into the information system, it's another story. It's different. The LLM, of course, is always interfaced or connected to the plugin. So the plugin is the only component able to talk to the LLM, and conversely, the LLM is only able to talk to the plugin, right? We must take this for granted. And the LLM, for example, cannot connect directly to the internet. If the LLM wants something, it has to, let's say, request it from the plugin. Now we don't talk. We are not going to talk about conversations anymore because, as I said earlier, we cannot filter conversations efficiently. So if we want to have an interaction between an LLM and the information system, an application in the information system, I have some good and bad news. The good news is that we can, and we'll see how, safely, and we don't need to buy this or that, okay. But the bad news is we must forget about conversations. I would say, unfortunately, we need to talk about APIs and simple APIs. If an application wants an information from an LLM, if it wants to get or put some information, it will have to use an API and not a conversation, because the conversation, as I said, are too dangerous. we must use simple, for example, REST API. The REST APIs are perfect for that, and use simple verbs and simple nouns or information that we carry with those verbs, because we, I would say, how would I say? If we transform a conversation into an API of simple atomic constructs, which are understandable by a computer, there's no risk of prompt injection. So the art of making an application work with an LLM is how to transform a conversation into a set of atomic structures, very simple structures. And we can do that at the plugin interface. We can do that within the API, within the application. The plugin is perfect for that. The plugin will serve as a translator, language translator. On one side of the plugin, you speak French, you speak English, you speak German, Japanese. On the other side, you speak only JSON, or maybe you're going to speak only, I don't know, very simple, just numbers, let's say, or very simple figures. And of course, this might kill, or it might be a problem for some business cases, because there is this transformation taking place, which is less expressive in terms of human understanding, but it is the only way for now to be 100% safe against prompt injection. And when I say safe against prompt injection, I mean in both directions, because an application can send an injected prompt into the LLM, but the LLM can also send injected prompts to downstream application or downstream LLMs through the APIs, if they are not, as I said, multilingual, let's say, okay? So the only 100% safe way to integrate an LLM into an information system is to have this language barrier, I would say, okay? This kind of transformation happening at the plugin level. And of course, not all business cases will work, but if you do otherwise, I don't see how you will be entirely safe from prompt injection. Remember that they can be really insidious. They can persist themselves. The conversations, of course, are not persisted in LLM, but they can self-poison themselves. They can re-inject themselves, the injected prompt, by simply rereading corrupted documents, especially in RAG. So we have to be careful, because those injected prompts are very dangerous. They behave like malware, persistent malware, and it's going to be very hard to potentially detect, or at least to prevent if you don't have this language barrier, and if you don't review the document that you put in RAG. Because if you just put any document in your corpora, you can be sure that sooner or later you will have some malicious prompt somewhere in a metadata of a document that you cannot see at first glance, but the injected prompt will be there, latent, ready to be read and to be propagated. And we are nearly, it's nearly the hour. I just want to add one more thing. So far we have talked about LLMs which we build ourselves, or which we buy as a platform as a service, AI as a service. But if we are in control of the patterns that we just discussed, we are fine. But there are plenty of vendors who are going to sell you LLMs in SaaS, as a software as a service. In this case, you have no control over the APIs. Okay, you have no control over the interfaces between this LLM and your information system, and you have to be very, very, very cautious about it, because, as I said, it's going to be very hard to protect, right? There is no guarantee that, unless, of course, you do some deep due diligence with your vendor, there's no clear guarantee that prompt injection will not be passed from their system to yours, or even the other way around. These are maybe the main takeaways, the main patterns that I wanted to discuss today with you. I hope they make sense. I don't know if we have time for a few questions potentially, Frank.
We have almost a time, but let's bring one of the questions from the chat. We have James waiting relentlessly to start, and we're gonna switch. So Neil was asking, can you prompt guard and context to try to keep the LLM on track, and can you also get the LLM or another LLM to check on the output of an LLM?
Yeah, Niels, that's a good point. For me, these are detective features. These are not preventive features. So it can work, of course, or not. It depends. At the moment, the maturity of having a second LLM checking the first one is, I wouldn't consider it enough, even if good progresses have been made. I think the original idea was discussed and some paper were published where, for example, you had a Llama LLM overseeing the activities of a GP and OpenAI LLM, and it was pretty good, but it was not good enough for me, at least. The guards can be circumvented, and that's a problem.
Brilliant. And I have one question, but unfortunately we are just at time. I'm going to ask you, are we going to see more of the airline they're going to issue free ticket because the LLM actually binded a contract, or is that just an internet myth that people have just said that act as a lawyer, act as a binding document, and give me a free ticket and say back to me?
Yes, it could work. Yes, sure. If of course you permit a conversation between a customer or anybody and your LLM, you might end up with having for a long time this kind of free tickets being issued by the LLM. That's you have to take care of to whom you permit your LLM to talk to. That's for sure.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Chris. It's been a beautiful talk. Let me bring James.
Fix vulnerabilities today before attackers exploit them tomorrow.